What if the single best investment you ever make pays back in confidence, income, and freedom for the rest of your life? This audio guide cuts straight to the core of invest in yourself, practical frameworks, daily rituals, and decision rules that convert your time and attention into lasting returns. Expect no vague motivation or feel-good platitudes, only repeatable moves you can apply today to sharpen skills, expand networks, and monetize your unique strengths. Each chapter after this will hand you one concrete habit, one measurable metric, and one small experiment you can run within a week. Listen closely. A tiny discipline change now compounds into far greater optionality later. Chapter 1. The Investment. Thesis. Treat yourself like the best asset you own. What if the single most valuable project you ever manage is the development of your own capacities, habits, and networks? Start by reframing the problem. You are not a cost center to be optimized down to zero. You are a compounding asset that appreciates with investment. The first practical move is to create an investment thesis for yourself, short and measurable, that answers 3 questions in plain language. What capability will drive the largest returns for you? What time horizon are you operating on? And what measurable milestones will show progress? Don't fall into vague resolutions. Translate the thesis into observable commitments, a weekly learning hour, a micro-project that turns knowledge into proof, and a visibility action that transforms private skill into market value. Real people exemplify this shift. A mid-level engineer decided his highest return was product thinking. He outlined a 12-month thesis: learn product design deeply via one structured course, build 2 small product experiments, and solicit feedback from 5 product managers. He scheduled 6 focused hours per week, documented his experiments in a public notebook, and after 9 months secured a promotion because the artifacts made the skill visible and testable. The thesis forces trade-offs because capital, whether time, money, or attention, is finite. Make the constraints explicit: the number of hours you can commit per week, the amount of money for courses or tools, and the margin of error you can tolerate in experiments. The practical discipline is to adopt a fixed allocation rule for self-investment. Commit a percentage of gross income or a fixed number of hours per week and treat the allocation as sacred. Automate the allocation where possible: a standing calendar block for practice and an automatic transfer to a dedicated learning fund so the investment does not become discretionary. Track inputs and outputs with brutal honesty. Inputs are hours, dollars, and interactions. Outputs are tangible artifacts: a portfolio piece, a measurable KPI improvement, or a client acquisition directly tied to your new capability. Use those outputs to validate or iterate on the thesis. If outputs lag, reduce scope and intensify feedback loops rather than doubling time blindly. The investment thesis also requires a risk tolerance assessment. How much short-term discomfort are you willing to tolerate for long-term optionality? Be explicit. People who avoid this clarity tend to half-execute and then abandon projects when the first obstacle appears. Finally, guard against the vanity trap of endless consumption, reading every book on a topic without producing anything. Information without application is entertainment, not investment. Convert learning into small, public experiments that produce feedback and income signals as soon as possible. The payoff for a discipline thesis is exponential. Skills compound like interest, networks become pathways to opportunities, and small visibility artifacts accumulate into credibility. Start by writing a one-paragraph thesis today, schedule your first 12 weeks of practice, and commit to one measurable artifact at the end of that period. This pragmatic scaffolding converts intention into an asset that pays dividends in confidence, income, and freedom. Chapter 2. Skill. Stacking, build unique combinations that command value. If the world rewarded single narrow competence, you would chase certificates, but markets prize unique combinations of skills because combinations are harder to replicate. Skill stacking is the deliberate practice of selecting complementary micro-skills that together create disproportionate value. The practical process begins by listing your existing strengths and mapping adjacent capabilities that multiply them. For example, a technical writer who adds basic data visualization and a modest product sense suddenly becomes the preferred contributor for analytics teams because she translates numbers into narrative and visuals in one package. The multiplication effect comes from sequencing build a core skill with deep practice, then add adjacent micro skills that extend the core's applicability. Prioritize skills that shorten the path from learning to monetization. Use bite-sized, deliberate practice sessions and frequent, specific feedback rather than unfocused hours. A useful rhythm is a weekly focus on one micro-skill with daily 5 to 10-minute targeted drills and a weekend project that applies the week's work in a real artifact. Track learning with 3 metric speed of executing the task, quality as judged by a small group of knowledgeable peers, and the latency from learning to market evidence a sale, a client call, or an invitation to collaborate. Stack skills strategically across dimensions that buyers value: domain knowledge, communication, and execution. For founders, this could mean technical competence, basic finance fluency, and simple negotiation ability. Each added skill reduces dependency on external partners and increases capture of value created. Guard against dispersion by limiting concurrent stacks to 2 or 3 complements at a time, and by imposing a minimum practice threshold before adding the next skill. Create deliberate transfer tasks that force synthesis, for example, a short product case study that requires technical implementation, user narrative, and go-to-market messaging simultaneously. Use public artifacts as proof of stacking, a mini-course, a well-documented GitHub repository, or a short portfolio piece that exhibits several skills together. The market will reward the combination more than each isolated capability because you reduce transaction friction for potential buyers. Finally, institutionalize review sessions where you prune irrelevant skills and double down on those that show clear market traction. Skill stacking is not vanity specialization. It is a practical lever to become scarce by design and to transform time invested into higher prospective returns. Chapter 3. Health Capital. The return on physical and cognitive vitality. Investment in yourself stalls when health is ignored. Physical energy and cognitive clarity are the operating system on which every other investment runs. Treat health as capital to be preserved and grown. The practical design includes minimal, evidence-based routines that produce maximal uptime. Sleep is non-negotiable. Set a consistent wake time within reason and prioritize sleep opportunity rather than episodic recovery. Movement matters, not necessarily long workouts, but daily, consistent activity, short walks, 2 to 3 strength sessions per week, or a modest mobility routine that prevents pain and sustains stamina. Nutrition should be pragmatic, prioritize protein and whole foods, stay hydrated, and reduce large late-night meals that disrupt sleep. Cognitive vitality benefits from routines that reduce decision fatigue, create rituals to simplify low-impact choices, and preserve willpower for high-leverage work. Include a short daily recovery ritual, micro-meditation or breathwork to reduce sympathetic activation and improve focus. Monitor health capital with simple metrics, sleep hours, resting heart rate, or a subjective energy rating to identify trends before problems escalate. Small investments compound. Consistent sleep and movement increase cognitive bandwidth, which in turn multiplies learning efficiency and decision quality. Use micro-experiments to find what works for you. 2-week trials to test a morning routine or a dietary adjustment and measure the effect on energy and productivity. Avoid chasing every optimization that promises marginal gains. Pick a few high payoff anchors and defend them fiercely. Health capital also includes emotional regulation. Practice schedule, short reflection, and social connection time because relationships are restorative. Protect physical boundaries such as daily movement and bedtime as inviolable appointments with your future self. Finally, view health spending as necessary infrastructure, not optional luxury. When you reframe sleep, exercise, and recovery as investments, the return in sustained performance and reduced friction becomes clear, and the cost of neglect compounds into lost opportunities and reduced longevity of productive years. Chapter 4. Network Equity. How to create and maintain valuable relationships. People underestimate the liquidity of social capital networks, convert goodwill, competence, and reliability into opportunities and optionality. Network equity begins with a shift from harvesting transactional favors to designing long-term reciprocal relationships. The practical architecture includes 3 parts: selective introductions, consistent contribution, and simple follow-up mechanisms. Be selective with whom you spend deep time. Choose people who expand your perspective, challenge assumptions, and whose success increases the likelihood of mutual benefit. Contribute predictably small, useful actions that signal competence and reliability. A pattern might be a monthly connector note introducing 2 people who benefit from meeting, or a brief piece of research that answers a partner's pressing question. Chapter 5. Marketable Proof. Turn learning into revenue. Producing artifact. The fastest way to convert self-investment into cash is to create marketable proof artifacts that demonstrate capability and solve real problems. An artifact is anything concrete. A mini-course, a consulting case study, a template, a short report, or a product prototype that a buyer can evaluate and purchase. The practical method is build, ship, learn, keep cycles. Start with a narrow problem statement and create the smallest useful artifact that addresses it. Price modestly at first to lower friction and to extract rapid feedback. Use that feedback to iterate and to add complementary offerings that increase lifetime value, such as follow-up coaching or advanced templates. Focus on time to feedback rather than polish. Early market signals trump internal perfectionism because they reveal product-market fit and revenue potential. Choose distribution channels that match buyer behavior. For enterprise value propositions, use direct outreach and pilots. For individual consumers, use discoverability platforms and niche communities. Package artifacts for easy consumption and clear next steps, what the buyer receives and how they derive value. Document case studies that show measurable outcomes and use these as social proof to reduce friction in future sales conversations. Consider freemium funnels where a compact free artifact demonstrates value and a paid upgrade captures committed buyers. Maintain a small repository of repeatable sales scripts and onboarding checklists so each sale converts with minimal custom work. Over time, assemble a catalogue of artifacts that create diversified income flows and that can be recombined into bundles for higher price tiers. Marketable proof turns otherwise private competence into visible cash engines and is the bridge between silent skill accumulation and tangible economic return. Start by shipping one small artifact in the next 2 weeks and treat it as an experiment, not a final product. The goal is learning, revenue, and proof that your investment strategy works. Chapter 6. Monetization Strategy. Turn skills into reliable cash flow. Investing in yourself must move from private improvement to public value exchange. The core move is to design monetization pathways that convert your growing capabilities into predictable income. Think of 3 parallel strands: active, productized, and leveraged income. Active income is the direct trading of time for money consulting, freelancing, hourly services. Productized income packages your service into fixed scope offers with predictable delivery and pricing. Leveraged income multiplies output by using other people's time, distribution or capital licensing, subscriptions, or affiliate channels. The discipline starts by mapping each core skill to at least one pathway in every strand. For example, a coach may keep active coaching hours to sustain cash, create a packaged course for scalable sales, and license parts of the curriculum to organizations for recurring royalties. Test small and launch cheap. Build a minimum viable offer for each pathway, a 1-hour paid session, a compact 2-module digital guide, and a pilot licensing agreement for a single team. Use short conversion funnels that lower friction, free short value pieces that lead to low-priced entry offers and then to higher tiers. Measure conversion rates, average revenue per customer, and customer acquisition costs so each pathway becomes a financial hypothesis you can iterate on rather than a hope. Protect margins by standardizing delivery and using automation, onboarding and fulfillment. Outsource where your time hooks the margin. Hire a part-time assistant for admin rather than trading away your highest value hours. Introduce recurring elements early, memberships, monthly support retainers, or subscription content, because recurring revenue creates optionality and predictable runway. Price ethically but assertively. Many talented professionals underprice due to anxiety. Anchor prices to outcomes and not to effort. When negotiating with institutional buyers, offer pilots with clear metrics and renewal triggers so you prove value before scaling commitments. Finally, reinvest a fixed fraction of early profits back into skills, distribution, and experiments. Treat monetization as portfolio management. Diversify across pathways, kill what fails quickly, and scale what shows durable margin and demand. The result is financial resilience and the freedom to invest in higher return growth rather than survive on vanity metrics. Chapter 7. Time. Wealth. Design. Your calendar as capital. Time is the raw resource for any personal investment strategy and the primary limiter of progress. The conscious practice is to convert attention into structured blocks labeled for highest expected return. Start with a weekly rhythm. Prime hours for deep skill work, secondary blocks for revenue-generating activity of protected recovery windows. Protect prime hours with concrete rituals that signal transition. 10 minutes of setup, the exact desired outcome for the block, and a simple shutdown routine that records one metric of success. Use the small win principle. A focused session should end with a visible artifact, even if imperfect. The calendar must reflect leverage, cluster similar tasks to reduce cognitive switching, and batch low-value admin into 2 fixed windows per week. Guard against busy work masquerading as productivity. If a task does not move you toward a measurable objective for the quarter, question its presence. Delegate ruthlessly. Hire for the tasks that absorb time but not strategic judgment. Use tools to reduce friction but avoid gadget chasing. A simple shared checklist, an automated billing sequence, and a calendar buffer do more than dozens of apps. Monitor time wealth with a weekly time audit that captures where hours actually went versus where you intended them to go. Use small experiments to reclaim hours, a 30-day test of email batching, a delegation sprint, or a protected morning for 2 weeks to see outcome differences. Consider the value of time arbitrage move work to lower cost time or outsource creative production in exchange for strategic hours. Finally, designed for margins in your day, give yourself slack for reflection and learning. Time wealth is not mere efficiency, it is the structure that allows you to compound capability without constant burnout. Chapter 8. Learning Systems. Build reliable, fast feedback. Loops. Learning is the engine. Systems make it fast and repeatable. The practical architecture is micro-curriculum plus rapid feedback plus application. Create a 12-week learning cycle focused on one specific capability with measurable outputs. Each week contains bite-sized lessons, short drills, and a public micro-project that forces application. Public projects create accountability and market signals. They transform private learning into visible proof. Pair practice with feedback sources, mentors, peer groups, or customers who provide direct critique. Use deliberate practice. Focus on highest leverage weaknesses, break them into sub-skills, and rehearse with immediate feedback. Track performance metrics, speed, quality, and market response. Rapid, small experiments beat long study without output. Incentivize completion with staged rewards and small public deadlines. Institutionalize reflection, a weekly 15-minute review that records what improved, what stalled, and the next micro-adjustment. Keep a learning ledger that logs moments of disconfirming evidence and the corrective step taken. This prevents repeating ineffective approaches. Also prioritize just-in-time learning. Consume material when directly useful to a current project so you convert knowledge to cash quickly. Finally, build learning portability. Document playbooks and teach them to a peer or junior. Teaching accelerates mastery and creates potential delegates. A disciplined learning system shortens the time from capability to monetizable competence. Chapter 9. Personal brand and visibility. Earn attention. Ethically, investing in yourself requires converting value into recognition, but visibility must be designed, not chased. The key is consistent, valuable output targeted at the exact audience that pays or influences those who pay. Define the smallest viable audience, professionals who buy your type of work, and create content that answers their immediate problems. Use short public artifacts with high utility, how-to templates, case studies, and short samples of your work. Publish with cadence and measure engagement, and lead quality, not vanity impressions. Use distribution leverage, repurpose one core idea into a thread, a short video, and a one-page downloadable, so the same work feeds multiple channels with minimal extra cost. Network with intent. Engage with the audience that overlaps your buyer personas and offer micro-value before asking for anything. Build social proof slowly. Small client testimonials, concise case studies with numbers, and visible artifacts of work. Protect authenticity, avoid performative stunts, and focus on quality that invites conversation. For higher ticket offerings, use direct outreach supported by public credibility. Let content open doors and conversations close deals. Visibility also demands boundaries. Schedule production time and refuse the trap of constant performance. The multiplier is consistency. 5 high-quality artifacts a month compound more than sporadic, viral bursts because trust accrues with predictability. Treat your brand as a product. Test messages, measure conversion, and iterate quickly. Chapter 10. Psychological Resilience and Long-Term Growth. Sustained self-investment requires mental toughness that tilts toward optimism without denial. Resilience is trained, not discovered. Build a recovery toolkit. Short rituals to downshifts, breath work, brisk walks, and deliberate perspective notes that remind you of progress. Normalize failure as information and create a short repair loop. When a project fails, record the facts, extract one corrective move, and schedule a small next step within 48 hours. Avoid narrative traps that interpret temporary setbacks as identity shame. Cultivate curiosity and gratitude as strategic habits. Curiosity fuels iteration, and gratitude stabilizes mood across long campaigns. Manage expectations with horizon discipline, set leading indicators for effort rather than results, and celebrate process wins. Surround yourself with reality checks peers who will both praise and challenge without ego. Keep periodic sabbaticals to avoid compounding fatigue and to allow creative recombination of ideas. Finally, embed long-term perspective in governance rules. Allocate a fixed % of income to long-term investments, keep a reserve for personal downturns, and define what success looks like in 10 years. Psychological durability is the compound interest of human performance. With it, your investments yield far beyond spreadsheets because you can outlast cycles and continue improving while others burn out. Conclusion. Start small. Scale. Intentionally. Keep learning. The thesis of Invest in Yourself is simple and operational. Invest time, attention, and small capital into capabilities that compound. Start with one tiny measurable habit, one mini product, and one public proof artifact. Protect your health and your time, design clear monetization pathways, and build learning systems that convert input into revenue signals quickly. Use networks as accelerants and make visibility a product, not a personality performance. Above all, cultivate resilience because the work is iterative and requires sustained curiosity. The path is not glamorous, it is steady daily work that accumulates into optionality, freedom, and the chance to build the life you value. Pick one micro-experiment today, a short course, a small paid service, or a public artifact, and commit to 12 weeks of disciplined improvement. Measure honestly, iterate fast, and let compounding do the heavy lifting. When you treat yourself as the most important asset you own, every small investment repays you in confidence, capability, and income across a lifetime.